Hi, I'm Liz Mercogliano, and today I'll be examining the Qantas Airways through the lens of the Keller's customer-based brand equity model known as CBBE. This is the one of the most revealing brand case studies available to us. It's because Qantas is a brand where extraordinary inherited equity has been directly tested by real-world failure. Let's climb into the period, shall we? Founded in 1920 in outback Queensland, Qantas is the world's third oldest airline, still operating with over 15 million frequent flyer members in a country of 26 million people. What makes it an ideal brand equity case study is its core tension. It is both one of the most loved and most criticised brands in Australia, a brand whose century-deep emotional equity coexists with recent visible performance failures. The foundation of Keller's period is salience, not just whether people know the brand, but whether they recall it at the right moment. Qantas has three extraordinary salience assets. First, the flying kangaroo, one of the most recognised brand symbols in the Southern Hemisphere, and a name so culturally embedded it's shorthand for Australian aviation. Second is safety. Qantas has never lost a jet-era passenger aircraft, and that record is recalled instinctively by consumers at the precise moment they feel most anxious. Third would be breadth. It's record across every travel context, from domestic hops to long-haul premium. Even during periods of deep brand damage, Qantas' salience has remained quite intact. Consumers may be angry, but they've definitely not forgotten. Layer 2 is where Qantas' story becomes critical. Historically, its functional performance was formidable: world-class safety, a premium upclass product, and a strong service scores. However, post-COVID, the brand experienced a really bad performance collapse. Baggage delays, mass cancellation, and on-time performance that ranked among the worst globally. Most damaging was the ACC ghost flight scandal, where Qantas sold tickets on thousands of flights it had already cancelled. That shattered the credibility. Now, if we look at the image column, Qantas is associated with national identity, pioneering spirit, Project Sunrise, non-stop Sydney to London, and warm Australian hospitality. However, the problem is clear how performance and imagery have dangerously clashed. The brand is making promises it cannot keep. Layer 3 captures how consumers have responded to what they experience. So what are people actually thinking and feeling? Let's break it down. When it comes to judgments, it's really mixed picture. The premium cabins are still getting strong marks. People rate their experience highly, but domestic economy, that's a different story. The sentiment there is genuinely bad, and that's a bigger issue, is trust. And for an airline, trust is everything. I mean, the ghost flight scandals hit that hard. People felt really deceived, and that's not easy to walk back. Then there's the question of whether Qantas is still the best. For a long time, that was just assumed. Now Virgin Australia's comeback means people are actually asking the question and not always landing on Qantas. On the emotional side of this, and that's everything in brandy, this matters, and there are three things happening at once. First, there's the disappointment from loyal customers, and that's not actually the worst thing. Disappointment means they cared in the first place, so that gives you something to work with. Second is that national pride. Even when things were at their worst, they held up. The Project Sunrise announcement, the direct long-haul flights, got an overwhelmingly positive response. That connection to Australian identity is still there. However, the third, there is a real anger and distrust from some customers, and that's serious and just can't be ignored. But there's the thing to hold on to, that anger is actually a signal. People who don't care about a brand don't get worked up. The intensity of the reaction tells you that the brand still means something, and then there's some opportunity that lives there. Let's look at brand resonance, and it's the top of the pyramid where customers don't just use a brand, they identify with it. And Qantas still really has that. 15 million loyalty members earning points daily at supermarkets, hotels, credit card, not just when they fly. Emotional attachment has taken a hit, but it's recovering under the new CEO, Vanessa Hudson, and the sense of community, that Qantas Club, the Chairman's Lounge, still creates that real belonging. Project Sunrise still, it might be more than a route launch. It's a national moment. Resonance is damaged, but the foundation, I think, still is intact. So what does this add up to? Strengths, and let's look at the SWOTs here. Let's look at strengths: a century of heritage, a safety reputation, one of the world's best loyalty programs. Weakness: the ACC scandal. Opportunities: that Project Sunrise. Australians generally want to trust that brand, and the threats: that ongoing sort of regulatory pressure. And the gap between Qantas was what it became, and that's the whole story. So in conclusion, the Qantas case study teaches us something fundamental. Brand equity is not permanent, it has to be earned continuously. Qantas spent a century building one of the most powerful brands in the world and came close to destroying it in 2 years. And yet the national connection held, the loyalty held, the desire among millions of Australians to love this brand again, that held. That's exactly why this case study works so well for Keller's CBBE model. Every layer of the pyramid, salience, performance, judgment, feelings, resonance, tells a different part of the story. It shows the model isn't just a framework for success, it's a diagnostic tool. One that reveals where equity lives, where it breaks down, and where recovery is possible. So the verdict on Qantas? Damaged but recoverable. The equity really does exist, and the question is whether they can deliver an experience that matches a century of promise. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'm Liz Mercogliano.